Okay, I'm back, and we're going on now to chapter 22 on page 171. Entrustment, 3 important points. All right, leaving off where we were yesterday. Same spirit. Point 1, regarding the passage, at that time Shakyamuni Buddha arose from his Dharma seat. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says, rose indicates the Buddha has risen from his seat within the treasure tower, and that the ceremony held outside the tower will now begin. This ceremony will now begin, okay? This ceremony is the entrustment of the teachings as indicated in the 3 paths of the Buddha given to the heads of the bodhisattvas that were there for the ceremony, right? For the ceremony in the air that had come from all the 10 directions, okay? The entrustment accompanied by the 3 paths symbolizes that the Buddha is entrusting to them the 3 categories of action, namely actions of the body, mouth, and mind, the 3 truths, and the threefold contemplation in a single mind, or realizing the truths, 3 truths in one's mind. Now, what's the significance of that? Point 1 is reminding you that the ceremony in the air is for the, while it's part of the Lotus Sutra in the latter day of the law is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Okay, this is the entrustment chapter. See, as I had said before, superior practices and the bodhisattvas of the earth have already been the essence of the Lotus Sutra, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, has already been transferred to them. We split after what I just read. That's why I was so fired up about it. We're gone. Okay, now this is going on and giving the depth of understanding for the remaining 5 chapters. And what he's talking about here is, okay, the reason that he's saying what he's saying, the entrustment accompanied by the 3 paths symbolizes that the Buddha is entrusting them with to them the degree of categories of action, namely actions of the body, mouth, and mind, which is all what we act. Those are our 3 bodies, actually, to some degree. Our body, we use our mouth to convey the teaching, and our mind to perceive it, all right? Our Dharma body isn't manifest yet if we're still bodhisattvas, or we'd already be Buddhas, all right? The 3 truths, which are what? Non-substantiality, temporary existence, the truth, the middle way, and the threefold contemplation in a single mind, or realizing the 3 truths, realizing the 3 truths in one mind. So that's the Makashikan. That's a construct from Tentais. Okay, so the bottom line is that these bodhisattvas are not the bodhisattvas of the earth. The bodhisattvas of the earth already left. All right, these are the disciples of Shakyamuni that appear in the former and the middle day of the law. They're not, this isn't specifically referring to us anymore, but that Daishonin is going to extrapolate it in a way so that we can gain merit or understanding from the continuation of the balance of the sutra text. So that's point 1. So that's qualifying. This is entrustment. This is to the former and the middle day of the law bodhisattvas that are going to attain Buddhahood through the teachings of the Lotus Sutra, okay, which has lost its power in the 5th 500-year period and beyond, right? Everybody's with me. Point 2, regarding the passage, the thus come one has great pity and compassion. He is in no way stingy or begrudging, nor has he any fear. He is able to bestow on living beings the wisdom of the Buddha because he can share Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. We've got to put this in the perspective of us as bodhisattvas of the earth of the latter day. We can share Nam-myoho Renge-kyo with anyone. We can share we're able to bestow on living beings the wisdom of the Buddha, the wisdom of thus come one, the wisdom that comes of itself. So it's not something that you're taught. And that wisdom is manifest when you reach the 6th stage of practice. You're the only one that allows you to perceive the fact that you're already a Buddha exactly as you are. And that you already, if that's the case, then you must have always been a Buddha, because you're no different than you were. But now you perceive, no, I'm something more than I thought I was. Okay, and that's the thing that now changes your entire future as it exists in this, as it occurs in this existence. So this is when you've been freed from the sufferings of birth and death, because you don't care about birth and death. They're part of the cycle you've gone through 1,000,000 times, and you're going to go through 1,000,000 times, and you have great joy because you know no matter what you're manifesting in terms of the 9 worlds, it's because you chose to be there. You chose to do that. It's your mercy and compassion that's making that circumstance in your environment so that you can behave as a thus come one of original enlightenment, and yet manifesting and utilizing Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, teach others in hell how to transform that life condition into the Buddha land. This is all about changing whatever 9 world body place you're in into the Buddha land. Okay, that's what the elimination of suffering is. Suffering is wisdom. Suffering is the elimination of wisdom. Okay, suffering is actually the absence of wisdom. It's called delusion. All right, so, and the wisdom that comes of itself is my favorite line, because boy, I've experienced that. When I tell you that I've learned more from chanting Daimoku to the Gohonzon than the Gohonzon's been my teacher, that's what I'm talking about. I read all the Goshas. I've read them multiple times. Yes, I've studied and all that sort of thing. But the thing that makes me understand what's really being said is the bringing forth of the wisdom that I was born with, that I'm eternally endowed with. I'm eternally endowed with the 3 bodies. I've always been a Buddha. Okay, and I'm not afraid to say it anymore. I am a thus come one of original enlightenment, eternally endowed with 3 bodies. That'd be stupid for me not to say it, because I know it's the truth. So let me say he is able. So he is able. So he's talking about me, so he must be talking about you. Okay, so let me start over. Point 2 regarding the passages, the thus come one has great pity and compassion. Me and you. Don't think of Shakyamuni. Or even Nichiren. We're of the same mind as Nichiren. That's what we're doing. We're manifesting the life state of Nichiren in the present realm, in this present moment. He is in no way stingy or begrudging, nor has he any fear, because we fearlessly understand the truth of the fact that nobody can take away the reality that we're the Buddha exactly as we are. And if they don't catch it, that's their ignorance, not anything about what we're saying and professing as such. Okay? He is able to bestow on living beings the wisdom of the Buddha. That's what I'm doing right now. That's what you do. Share the videos. And the wisdom that of the thus come one, the wisdom that comes of itself. That's the wisdom that comes from the Dharma nature, the original state, the Nam-myoho Renge-kyo that is your life. When we talk about the Gohonzon that is you, that's the Dharma realm of your life. That's the Dharma nature of your life. It's not a scroll that suddenly got inserted into your physical body. It's the wisdom to perceive the truth about yourself and subsequently then everyone else. The thus come one is a great giver of gifts to all living beings, because once you give them the path to Buddhahood, they got all kinds of benefit. They've got all kinds of wonderful experiences as we have all had. And eventually those experiences, as shallow as they might be initially, because they seem like they're gifts from somewhere else, we realize are all manifestations of our own karma, our own power, our own wisdom as Buddhas, as thus come ones exactly as we are. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says, since the thus come one is the thus come one of the wonders of the original law. So he's saying, since the Buddha, all Buddhas are Nam-myoho Renge-kyo thus come ones, okay? In reality, all Buddhas attain Buddhahood through their engagement with the law, the original state. The term thus come one here refers to the votary, refers to this votary of the Lotus Sutra. The one that's referring to, again, Shakyamuni. All right? In the phrase giver of great gifts, the word gifts refers to Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, okay, which is the ultimate gift. which will spread in the present age, the latter day of the law, because the bodhisattva of the earth are going to give, manifest and do it. The word giver, you should understand, refers to the bodhisattva's superior practices. The original teacher that is endowed with the eternally endowed three bodies and realize that all others are as well. So again, there had to be something that was the original source of perception of the truth of the middle way, okay, which is Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. So who is the first to chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo on planet Earth in, 13th century Japan, the night before he went and gave his big lecture and just came out of his mouth and he didn't even understand why. And then he dedicated the rest of his life to propagating his teaching, but could never really call it his teaching because everybody would have stoned him to death and shit, and had to go live in a hermitage and a hut and go to Sado Island and endure life-threatening circumstances like Tatsunokuchi and Izu. If we can be even a little bit like that, we get to have that name associated with our lives. The word giver, you should understand, refers to the bodhisattva superior practices, which is not a specific personage. It's the aspect of the truth of our existence and identities as bodhisattvas of the earth, of the original state. To be sure, this chapter is the one in which the theoretical teaching is, to be sure, he's saying, because it's entrustment, all right? To be sure, this chapter is the one in which the theoretical teaching that's preceded Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, but that has led to Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, that theoretical teaching is what led Nichiren to perceive their actual teaching. To be sure, this chapter is the one that the theoretical teaching is entrusted to the bodhisattvas in general, even the ones that are are going to manifest in the former and the middle day of the law as disciples of Shakyamuni, because they're going to finally get to Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. They'll always only be bodhisattvas, right? However, top of page 72. However, since the entrustment is made to the bodhisattvas who have made superior practices their leaders, us, since the entrustment that has already occurred in our advent in the latter day of the law and the fifth 500-year period and after, have made it to the superior practices of the leader, it is clear that the true meaning of this is the entrustment. That the entrustment is made to superior practices. Okay, so the entrustment has been made to the original teacher to manifest in the fifth 500-year period with the great pure law of Nam Myoho Renge Kyo and propagate it until we achieve Kosen Rufu, the widespread propagation of that teaching and understanding and the perception of at least a third of the population of the earth. And then everybody gets to enjoy the Buddha land. That's the mercy and compassion of the teacher. He doesn't even require it to be everybody, just enough that we pull it off. And it's our job to make sure we hit that number. Point 3 on 172 in the end of the entrustment passage, chapter aspect of the OTT. Point 3, regarding the passage, we will respectfully carry out these things just as the world honored one is commanded. We beg the world honored one to have no concern on this account, to not worry about whether or not we bodhisattvas are going to fulfill our vow and never give up and practice with forbearance and put up with the shit and manifest wisdom and realize and then transmit the truth that all living beings are Buddhas, eternally endowed with the three bodies. So he continues, the record of the orally transmitted teaching says this passage constitutes the vow made by the various bodhisattvas, regardless of what time period they're born in, and the others that are at the ceremony in the air. It is on this basis of this passage that Nichiren and his followers venture to reprimand the heavenly gods. Hachiman, where are you? You better come and save their ass. If they cut my head off, it's going to be yours. Okay, and a mysterious meteor comes over and illuminates for a few seconds the nighttime turns into day and scares the shit out of the executioners. Those kinds of supernatural powers exist in your life as well. If you manifest them because of the faith of having the same mind as Nichiren, you will have those kinds of experiences. I've had Tatsunakuchi kinds of experiences personally. That's why I talk like I talk. I'm an asura. I'm a fired up person. Not everybody can talk like I can. Not everybody has to. You don't have to just believe me. Believe the teaching. That's good enough. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says, again, last point of entrustment. This passage, this passage constitutes the vow, which is that's what allows you to have forbearance and put up with this shit and have dutta and however, whatever else he had said the previous page. Again, forbearance and it was over here then, wasn't it? Yeah, forbearance and to endure. We learn to endure. Okay. The record of the orally transmitted. This passage constitutes the vow made by the various bodhisattvas and others. It is on this passage that Nichiren and his followers venture to reprimand the heavenly gods and benevolent deities and the bodhisattvas for failing to fulfill their vow. That's when we can go sit in front of the Gohonzon and look at the characters on the Gohonzon. And I do. I pick out Hachiman. I pick out the 4 heavenly kings. I pick out Devadatta, my bro. I pick out the gods of the sun and the moon and the stars because I know where they are. I know where the dragon king's, the dragon mother is. I know where her 10 demon daughters are. Okay? I talk to the Gohonzon in that manner, just like Nichiren did. I don't know, it's up to you. How deep do you want to get into it? But the representations on the Gohonzon are for a reason. They're aspects of our own life, okay? And when we're calling them out and reprimanding them, we're reprimanding the aspect of our Buddhahood to emerge and overcome the trial, tribulation, and difficulty we have, not for personal benefit, but for the sake of display of the supernatural powers of the thus come one, as a means of being able to express and help others experience through our pity and compassion the joy of being a Buddha of limitless joy. That's what it is. We do not begrudge our lives. We freely give of our bodies for the sake of the law. That's what I'm doing. That's what you'll be doing. That's what you all are doing. I'm sure you are. The people that are watching these videos, how could you not be? You wouldn't be hearing me talking like this. Okay? So page 172, continuing on chapter 23, former affairs of the Bodhisattva Medicine King. 6 important points. We might get through this. Point 1, regarding the passage, even if a person were to fill the whole 1,000,000,000-fold world or a major world system with the 7 treasures as an offering to the Buddha and the greatest bodhisattvas, pratyeka Buddhas, and arhats, the benefits gained by such a person cannot match those gained by accepting and uphold this Lotus Sutra, even just one 4-verse line of it. The Bodhisattva never disparaging thing. I would never disparage you. I have profound respect for you because you are surely going to practice the Buddha, the Bodhisattva way, because he's opened the name and he's professed the name and the words of the truth in that process. That's the 24 character Lotus Sutra. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says the words this Lotus Sutra refers to the entire sutra made up of the 28 chapters. The words 4-line verse of it, you should understand, refers to the 5 characters of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, of the Daimoku. All right? Point 2. Understand that then? So upholding Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is enough to be a Buddha like Shakyamuni and know all this stuff. To be a Buddha like Nichiren and to know all this stuff on the deeper level of the latter day and the original state. All right. Point 2, on the 10 comparisons illustrating the supremacy of the law. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says the 10 comparisons correspond to the 10 worlds. So it's everything, no matter what life condition or environment you're existing in at this moment. Thus, the region situated beneath the mountains of the second comparison must include the realm of hell. So no, this is qualifying, Frank. It doesn't matter if you're in hell. You're just manifesting that for the sake of revealing your own innate original state to help the people in hell perceive the original state in their lives. The rivers and streams of the first comparison must refer to the realms of hungry spirits and of animals. Okay? The realm that lies beneath the sun and moon must include that of the Asuras. Asuras. The mention of the deities Chakra and Brahma must refer to the realm of heavenly beings, while that of ordinary mortals must refer to the realm of human beings. So in other words, all of the 6 lower levels out of the 10 worlds, the first 3, hell, hungry spirits, and animals, and then asuras, living beings, and heavenly beings, okay, are all covered in that statement. The mention of voice hearers must refer to those persons in and aiming at the 4 stages of Hinayana enlightenment, culminating in the stage of Arhat. People that aren't awakened to the original state of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, they're still trying to go through the long process that's described in the Agamas Sutras, the Theravadins. The reference to Pratyeka Buddhas must indicate the realm of cause awakened ones are Pratyeka Buddhas also there. The phrase Bodhisattvas are foremost must indicate the realm of Bodhisattvas, which is Mahayana Buddhism, while the words as the Buddha is king of the doctrines must indicate that of the Buddha, the 6th stage of practice, the highest realm. These 10 comparisons with their correspondence to the 10 worlds, are cited on the one hand to show that in terms of classification of the various teachings, the Lotus Sutra holds the highest place. But they are also cited when one is discussing the manner in which the single vehicle of the Lotus Sutra, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, was earlier taught in the form of the 3 vehicles in the theoretical teaching of Tiantai and all of the other great teachers that appeared for the sake of the Daishonin being able to have his epiphany of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the original state, in the latter day of the law, the 500-year period. Without all of that stuff preceding him, the Daishonin, then he couldn't have achieved what he achieved. So everything is connected. Everything is connected. I used to discount Shakyamuni. Shakyamuni is an important part. It's part of the mind of enlightenment that I have now. Okay? Shakyamuni and many treasures. Okay, let me say that again. But they are also cited when one is discussing in the manner in which the single vehicle of the Lotus Sutra, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, was earlier taught in the form of the 3 vehicles. In this sense, the 10 comparisons are an expression of the doctrine of 3,000 realms in a single moment of life, the doctrine that Buddhahood exists in everything. Okay, even in the environment, even in sentient beings. For it is this doctrine of 3,000 realms in a single moment of life that is capable of freeing one from suffering and bringing one joy. So when we talk about the Buddha of limitless joy, it doesn't mean that you're in a heavenly state where there is no shit hitting the fan and no problems, difficulties, or perplexities. It means that you bring forth the Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, thus come one aspect of your life, and immediately that hell turns into the Buddha land. And you feel joy because you understand the truth. You're not chained to the perceptions of your delusion anymore. You've escaped that. You've manifested exactly what the teaching promised you could. There is no greater gift. And it's up to you to now share that gift with everyone you can. Share my videos. I'm going to start saying that. I won't say, I don't give a shit about likes. I give a shit about views. How many people that are suffering are not understanding what I've come to understand through my own suffering? That's all I'm sharing. This all comes from my own suffering. Everything I say to you. Point 3, regarding the passage, such as this Lotus Sutra, it can cause living beings to cast off all distress because we have badass confidence in what we are and what we do. All sickness and pain, because they're temporary states of a single identity in a single lifetime. It doesn't matter how long we last. We last as long as we last. Our karma reflects what our karma has been created by us. It can loose all the bonds of birth and death because we no longer fear birth or death and we have no delusion about it. Okay, it continues. Point 3 continues on page 174. The record of the orally transmitted teachings says the very heart of the Lotus Sutra is the teaching that earthly desires are enlightenment. My earthly desires, which caused all my suffering, is what brought me to the point that I'm at in this moment. All right? And that the sufferings of birth and death are nirvana. That's exactly what I've experienced in my life. Those are not just words or a phrase that's so cool and it's on the Gohonzon. Okay? The sufferings of birth and death are the lessons of everyday life that finally elevate you to the 6th stage of practice and your identity of being a Buddha and the Dharma body actually manifesting in your life, and you no longer have any separation with anything, and therefore everything around you becomes your teacher. You don't have to read it as a go-show. You are living the go-show. You're living the orally transmitted teachings. That's the whole goal, is not to have this be something that's limited to a book or a teaching, but to have it expanded into your very living life. That's how you do Shakabuku. That's how you accomplish Kosen Rufu. Here, the two expressions, cast off and unloose, would seem to go directly counter to this teachings. We don't cast off. We cast off the delusion. We become unloose from our own fundamental darkness. However, we should take the words cast off in the sense of becoming enlightened concerning. That's what we do. We finally figure out what the real deal is. Hell is hell only because I'm filled with delusion and don't have any hope because I don't have any faith. I think I have faith when I don't have faith. My faith isn't expressed as faith. It's expressed as doubt, confusion. Why aren't you saving me?
Yes.
Okay? Never realizing you save you. Nothing outside of you saves you. When the thoughts come in your mind when you're chanting Daimoku to the Gohonzon, where do you think those thoughts are coming from? They're coming from the Shakyamuni and many treasures that are in your mind. They're coming from the original state of life of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, which is your eternally endowed 3 bodies. If we look with the eyes of wisdom, as they are opened by the lifespan chapter of the essential teaching, we will become enlightened to the truth that sickness, pain, and distress are and have always been an innate part of life. We can't escape birth, old age, sickness, and death, man. That's not anything to be depressed about. That's something to have wisdom about. Such is the wisdom of the Buddha of limitless joy. The Buddha that appears for the sake of giving their life for the sake of the propagation of the law and widespread propagation and the achievement of Kosen Rufu. The Bodhisattva of the earth in the latter day that have as their teacher Nichiren Daishonin. The phrase unloose all the bonds of birth and death means to unlock us from the error of supposing that we are now encountering birth and death for the first time, and to help us realize that birth and death have always been an innate part of life, of existence. Thus, we are released from the bonds of supposing that we will attain enlightenment for the first time, as Shakyamuni did in his lifetime in India. We don't use that old teaching as the basis of how we view things. We use the Daishonin's teaching to loosen ourselves, to eliminate that delusion. These 2 expressions, cast off and unloose, are in fact expressions of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. The man just said it. That's the end of point 3 of Bodhisattva Medicine King. We'll continue next time. we get together. Thank you.